All right, imagine this. You're in the operating room, and the surgeon is about to use a revolutionary laser scalpel. It's minimally invasive, incredibly precise, and utterly dependent on a little-known element called thulium,
Ah,
a rare earth metal. Bet you didn't see that coming. That's the thing about rare earth metals. They're kind of hiding in plain sight. We're diving into an article today called The New Gold Rush, How Rare Earth Metals Are Redefining Wealth in 2025. It paints a picture of a world increasingly reliant on these elements. So let's break it down. What exactly are we talking about when we say rare earth metals?
well, the term itself is a bit of a misnomer. We're actually talking about a group of 17 elements with some pretty wild-sounding names like neodymium, dysprosium, and, as you mentioned, thulium. They're not necessarily rare in the Earth's crust, but finding them in concentrated mineable deposits, that's the challenge.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got these 17 elements. They're not exactly rare, but they're hard to get to. What makes them so important, especially in 2025? The article makes it sound like this is a pivotal year.
It really is. Think about the tech landscape. We're talking smartphones, electric vehicles, wind turbines, even those high-tech military applications. They all rely on rare earth metals for their unique magnetic, luminescent, and catalytic properties.
I was reading about how neodymium, for example, is what makes those super strong magnets in electric car motors. But how does that actually work? What's so special about neodymium?
What's fascinating about neodymium is that when you alloy it with iron and boron, you create a material that can hold an incredibly strong magnetic field for its size. That means you can create powerful, compact motors, perfect for electric vehicles where space and weight are crucial.
That's really interesting. And it's not just neodymium, right? Each of these 17 elements has its own unique properties and uses.
Absolutely. Take dysprosium, for example. It's often added to neodymium magnets to increase their heat resistance, which is crucial for things like wind turbine generators that operate at high temperatures.
So we've established these metals are essential for existing technologies. But what about their role in driving new innovations?
That's where things get truly exciting. For example, scientists are experimenting with terbium and europium in the development of next-generation lasers and lighting solutions. And as we mentioned earlier, thulium plays a vital role in that precise surgical laser we talked about.
So it sounds like the demand for rare earth metals is only going to increase. The article points to three main drivers behind this 2025 boom.
Exactly. The first is the continued tech explosion. Every new smartphone, every electric vehicle, every wind turbine, it all adds to the demand for these elements. And the second driver is the global push for green energy. Many clean technologies simply wouldn't be possible without rare earth metals.
And that leads us to the third driver, supply chain worries. With geopolitical tensions simmering, nations are realizing they can't always rely on imports for something this critical.
Right. The article specifically mentioned how a European electric vehicle manufacturer had to temporarily halt production because of a disruption in their rare earth metal supply. It highlighted the vulnerabilities of relying on a limited number of suppliers.
So this is creating a scramble for new sources, which I imagine creates both opportunities and challenges.
Absolutely. On one hand, you have countries like Australia and Canada investing heavily in rare earth mining, hoping to diversify the global supply.
And I remember reading about that Australian startup using AI to optimize their mining operations and minimize their environmental impact. That kind of innovation is pretty exciting.
It is. But on the other hand, there's the environmental concern. Mining these metals can be quite disruptive if not done carefully, leading to stricter regulations and scrutiny.
This challenge, however, is sparking some truly fascinating innovations, like the development of urban mining techniques.
Exactly. Urban mining focuses on recovering rare earth metals from discarded electronics and industrial waste. It's like a high-tech treasure hunt.
It sounds like a win-win. We could reduce the environmental impact of traditional mining while reclaiming valuable resources that would otherwise end up in landfills. It really is a fascinating concept. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the geopolitical implications of all this. It seems like controlling these rare earth metals gives countries a lot of leverage.
It absolutely does. Remember, these aren't just metals, they're strategic assets, essential for national security and economic competitiveness. And the current concentration of production in a few countries creates a lot of anxiety for others.
The article mentioned how the U.S. is trying to reduce its reliance on China for these metals, which makes sense considering the current trade tensions.
Exactly. And it's not just the U.S. The European Union has also announced initiatives to bolster their domestic rare earth production and processing capabilities.
Oh, we're seeing a realignment of global power dynamics based on who controls these resources. It's like a high-stakes game of chess, with rare earth metals as the key pieces.
That's a great analogy. And like any good chess game, it's not just about the pieces you have, but how you use them. We're seeing countries forging strategic partnerships and trade agreements, all centered around securing access to these critical elements.
It's interesting to think about how these geopolitical maneuvers will impact the development of new technologies. Will certain countries have an advantage when it comes to innovation?
That's a crucial question. Access to a stable and affordable supply of rare earth metals could be a determining factor in which countries lead the way in fields like renewable energy, artificial intelligence, and advanced manufacturing.
So, for our listeners who are following these trends, what are some of the key things to watch for in this geopolitical chess match?
Well, pay close attention to any new discoveries of significant rare earth deposits. A major find could dramatically shift the balance of power. Also, keep an eye on the trade agreements and partnerships being formed. These alliances can reveal a lot about which countries are prioritizing access to rare earth metals.
And don't forget about the role of environmental regulations. Countries with stricter standards might attract investment from companies that are committed to sustainable practices, potentially giving them an edge in the long run.
Absolutely. It's becoming increasingly clear that environmental stewardship and economic competitiveness are no longer mutually exclusive. In fact, they might be the key to success in the rare earth metal industry.
It sounds like we're on the cusp of a major transformation, not just in terms of technology, but also in terms of global power structures and environmental consciousness.
It's a truly fascinating time to be following this space. And while there are certainly challenges ahead, there's also a sense of optimism. The need for rare earth metals is driving incredible innovation, both in terms of mining techniques and the technologies they enable.
Okay, so we've talked about the what, the why, and the who of rare earth metals, but let's bring it back to our listener. What does this all mean for them?
Well, on a practical level, it means becoming more aware of the hidden role these elements play in our daily lives. That smartphone in your pocket, the electric car you might be considering, even the renewable energy powering your home, they're all connected to this complex web of rare earth metals.
So it's not just about understanding the science or the geopolitics. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of it all.
Precisely. And it's about making informed choices as consumers. Support companies that are prioritizing sustainable mining practices and responsible sourcing. Consider the lifespan and recyclability of the products you buy. These small actions can collectively make a big difference.
It's empowering to realize that even in a complex global system like this, individual actions can have an impact.
Absolutely. And for those who are interested in investing, this is a space ripe with opportunity. As the demand for these metals continues to grow, companies involved in mining, processing, and recycling rare earth elements could see significant growth.
It sounds like the rare earth gold rush is more than just a catchy headline. It's a real economic force with the potential to create wealth and drive innovation for years to come.
It certainly is, and it's an area that's going to become increasingly important for anyone who wants to understand the future of technology, economics, and geopolitics.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but I feel like there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to discuss: the ethical considerations surrounding rare earth metal mining.
That's a crucial point. While the demand for these metals is driving innovation and economic growth, we can't ignore the potential social and environmental consequences of mining them. It's important to remember that some mining operations have been linked to human rights abuses and environmental damage, particularly in regions with weak governance and oversight.
So, how can consumers make sure they're not inadvertently supporting these harmful practices?
Transparency and traceability are key. Look for companies that are committed to ethical sourcing and are transparent about their supply chains. Support organizations that are working to improve mining standards and advocate for responsible practices.
It sounds like due diligence is crucial. We need to be informed consumers and hold companies accountable for their practices.
Absolutely. And this is where individual awareness can really make a difference. By supporting companies that prioritize ethical and sustainable sourcing, consumers can send a powerful signal to the market.
So it's not just about governments and corporations. It's about all of us playing a part in shaping a more responsible rare earth metal industry.
Precisely. And that brings us back to the heart of this deep dive. It's not just about understanding the science or the economics of rare earth metals. It's about recognizing the human element. These metals are woven into the fabric of our lives, from the technologies we rely on to the geopolitical dynamics shaping our world.
Yeah. It's been an eye-opening conversation, and I think we've given our listeners a lot to consider.
I hope so. The rare earth metal industry is complex and constantly evolving, but it's a story that deserves our attention. These elements are playing a pivotal role in shaping the 21st century, and understanding their significance is crucial for anyone who wants to navigate the future.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I'd say it's this. Rare earth metals are more than just a scientific curiosity or an economic commodity. They represent a convergence of technology, geopolitics, environmental sustainability, and human ingenuity. It's a story that's still being written, and we all have a role to play in shaping its outcome.
Well said. And on that note, we'd like to thank our listeners for joining us on this fascinating journey into the world of rare earth metals.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. There's a whole universe of knowledge out there waiting to be discovered.